of the Northeast Neighborhood Housing Strategy Oversight Committee. For those who have not been here before, or even for those who have, this is a group of community volunteers who come together every other month for these meetings where we are tasked with holding accountable the City of Portland and its provider partners to promises made to take a new and transformative strategy in the interstate corridor urban renewal area with regard to its housing expenditures. There are agendas for this meeting in the back of the room. There's also a sign-in if you would please sign in. There is food, obviously. Please have some dinner. It's great. The restrooms, if you need them, are going to be straight back here behind Sawyer and following the sign for restrooms. We do take public comment. That will start at 8 p.m. tonight. If you would like to sign up for public comment and prepare to talk for 3 minutes here at our table, you may sign up for that as well. And I will take a call at the end for those who perhaps haven't signed up if we have time. So
with that,
we'll dive right in. We have our neighborhood housing program updates from PHB staff in Ingram.
Good evening. It's on. All right. Hello, I'm Dana Ingram Shepherd, and
scoot it up a little bit. There you go.
Up here.
So you
okay.
Lean.
Okay. Right. All right. And I'm here to give a couple of updates before I dive into my portion. Mainly to talk about the home retention pilot program. But since we last met in December, there has been quite a bit of movement towards our goals and making new homeowners. So I just wanted to give you all a quick update because I'm really excited about it. But right now, we have a total of 15 preference policy households that have become homeowners. And that does include several funding sources, the Northeast, the Prosper Portland funds, and then we had one that closed or will be closing tomorrow with the citywide. In addition to that, we have 6 more families that are out shopping, have received awards and out shopping for homes. So we expect those numbers to climb pretty rapidly. So really, really happy about that. All right. Okay, so I mainly come here in front of you all tonight to speak about the home retention pilot program. I believe this would be, I brought it up in November to let you all know that we are going to be moving forward with this. There was funds set aside, I think about 8 months ago now, $200,000 in CDBG towards these efforts, and I do know that this is very near and dear and something that has been spoken about here several times for home retention. And so I just wanted to give you all a little bit of information as to where we are, but really this presentation is really just to ask for your input and to help us and help guide us a little bit as we approach releasing an RFP. And so I'll go ahead and begin. And I'm really just hoping that between a couple of these slides, I can stop and ask questions and you can react to them. I'm hoping that that's okay during this part of the presentation. Is that okay, Dr. Bates? Yeah, okay, all right. So first of all, I wanted to let you all know what home retention programs we already have at the Bureau that are all within the neighborhood housing program team. So we have home repair, that's small home repair grants that go up to $10,000. We have home repair loans, those are at $40,000. We have the lead hazard control grants, those are about, we are supposed to actually address whatever problems that are found in the home. And then we have the home retention services, advocacy and information, workshops and such. Those workshops that you see listed, bulleted right underneath there, those are workshops that are facilitated by our partners that are listed at the bottom. And then we have foreclosure prevention. So HUD certified foreclosure prevention education and counseling. So that at the bottom is a list of partners that you might already be familiar with, most of them, but they all have subrecipient contracts with the Bureau doing one or more of these types of activities. So, the home retention pilot program, my understanding and what we are trying to do is fill the gaps in the current home retention services that we have. So we're trying to prevent displacement of long-time and low to moderate income homeowners in Northeast Portland and help families transfer homes from one generation to the next. So if there's anything else you all can think of in this area, but those are our primary objectives. If there's something that we're missing here, please do share. All right, I'll move on. So we have a community engagement plan. So we are trying to really connect with the community to find out what it is that they need in order to maintain and stay in their homes for the long term. So what services do long-time low to moderate income homeowners in Northeast Portland need to help them stay in their homes? What are the barriers to maintaining home ownership? Are long-time low to moderate income homeowners in Northeast Portland interested in services to address the following needs? So we have a short list of things that are on the survey, and if you all, again, can think of anything additional that we may be missing, please let us know. We are very much in the exploratory stages of trying to find out what people need. And so please do share, and then we can add it to the survey. There is a survey in the back of the room that I'm hoping that folks will fill out to give us a better idea of what their needs are. And my understanding from already receiving 38 surveys is folks don't know what to ask. They don't know what they are missing. They don't know to ask about any type of legal services or anything like that. They just know maybe that they've lost their homes or their homes are in jeopardy, and they don't know what it takes to actually keep their homes. So we're just trying to really get a really extensive list so that it can trigger someone to actually mark what it is that they might need. So please, we plan to release the RFP in May, and we extended that so that we can have an opportunity to hear from you all and not do anything too quickly without your input. So please do let us know about that, even if it's not tonight, later on. Were you going to say something? Yes, someone is taking notes, so please do say that now, if there's something not on this list.
Any thoughts on the list?
I have one question. Hold on, one question. Oh, sorry, after crunching my chips in there. The one thing on this list that I would add as well, Dana, is if they have funeral insurance or any kind of burial insurance, because that seems to also impact long-term families because it's under estate planning. African-American families are it's one of the areas where they're limited is covering funeral costs, and that can lead to predatory outcomes. So that was one I would encourage you to add.
Thank you.
My thoughts are perhaps around reputable sources for property appraisal in relating to things like predatory buyers. I think also there's a need for potentially for some sort of the technical construction type know-how, not in terms of doing your own, but avoiding predatory contractors, understanding environmental remediation, other, how do you choose and address the actual physical issues that are going on with your home. I wonder if there's a need for criminal justice expungement services for some people in terms of thinking about their access to credit, and also to be prepared for some family counseling needs with respect to title and ownership, that there may be additional emotional and family relationship issues, as well as just title issues.
Is there anything else that's helpful? Oh, yes.
I would add some education around what happens with Medicaid eligibility when people move into long-term care. Their home no longer qualifies if they don't have the quote-unquote intent to return. It falls out of the home exemption, and people it then becomes an asset, and then they're no longer qualified for Medicaid for their long-term care. So there are strategies, financial strategies to avoid that, like transferring the property to a family member or having someone live in the house with you for more. There are strategies there, but it has been, especially for elderly homeowners, that has come up as a big surprise and caused people to have to sell their house when otherwise they would have rather left it for their children.
That's great. I just want to, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. If there's anything else that comes up, please contact me. We are doing this community engagement process for a few weeks, so please do let us know. I wanted to just let you know we have collected 38 surveys so far, and what people have said so far is they want financial assistance with property taxes. That was the #1 thing. And they said finding a contractor, so you all mentioned that, estate planning, which encompasses a whole lot, but that was like kind of the overarching thing. And then cash, door-to-door offers to buy homes, so predatory type thing. So those were the top 4 things that we've heard from the 38 respondents so far.
And Dana, is there a community engagement consultant you're working on with this?
We do not have a community engagement consultant. You all let me know if you feel like that's necessary, but I will click on right here to tell you what it is that we are doing, and you can let me know if that just is not enough. So we're doing surveys, focus groups, and interviews, and I do feel like there's a whole lot more that can be done, and I would love to spend a lot more time trying to get this, to gather this information from the community. So who we're contacting, anyone that has received any type of assistance through our home repair program, and that is the grants or the loans, we're reaching out to them. Longtime Northeast homeowners, we're pulling a lot of data to get that information, community members, and service providers. Where we're going, and actually maybe a couple weeks ago was a busy weekend. We had the City African American Network Fair, the African American Alliance for Home Ownership, Home Retention Workshop, and then the City Fix It Fair. And that's where the majority of these surveys came from, and we'll continue to go to every fair that we can think of, especially if we do expect North and Northeast residents to be there. On top of that, we've contacted SEI and Urban League Senior Center. And again, please continue to let me know. I know that there is a host of other organizations that we can contact. We are really just trying to find out where the North and Northeast residents are and where they're going. So Northeast churches, and then North Portland Library, Charles Jordan Community Center, and again, here. We know that folks do take a look and watch these videos. Again, we have the surveys in the back, and hoping that folks fill those out there. So if there's any, again, I'm going to pause for a minute. I know you all can think of a few places as well. I know there's a list, but if there's like one place that you really believe that it makes no sense for us to skip, can you please share that with me now or at a different time? Okay. Community engagement plan. Oh, I just asked the question. Who else could the Housing Bureau seek input from? And then how else could the Housing Bureau engage with the community other than the ways that I've already stated?
So, Ms. Dana, I'm not part of the committee, but
Mm-hmm.
I just think one of the things that we can do is the Hill Block is next week, as well as the Northeast CDI, and that'd be a great opportunity for us to have some surveys available and potentially have you do 3 minutes of public comment about what's going on, because they generally get people to come just to hit every possible place that people are congregating.
Yes, that's good. Thank you.
Is the survey a link or is it paper?
It is paper. And we could definitely make it a link. What we noticed with the folks that have filled it out, they were the elderly population, the long-term residents. That doesn't mean there aren't some folks that would rather a link, but Ms. Leslie just mentioned that today with putting it on the website. So I think that we'll probably just make that happen. Absolutely.
I think a link is important because they might be able to have children that can assist. The one group I would say that's not there is DHS. A lot of elderly folks are now taking care of grandchildren as well. And so DHS is a good conduit to reach them. Also, I think ecumenical or albino ministerial alliance would also, be good to put on there as well. And another important church that I would look at is Vancouver Baptist Church in specific.
Right.
So in talking to Pastor Hennessy and his group, but I'm just thinking of places where this kind of service would be needed, especially, the reason I say DHS is because those grandparents are experiencing financial constraints that were unexpected, but it is a growing population within DHS.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Sawyer just gave you a copy of the survey. Again, if there's anything on there that you think needs to be changed, please. We really, really are just wanting the Oversight Committee to really, really be a big part of this. So please do share. So, Home Retention Pilot Program timeline. Community engagement started in February and it's going to go through April, actually through the next Oversight Committee, where we plan to share or have allowed you to look at the RFP, even if not in this particular setting, but look at it and then react to it at the next Oversight Committee. And with that, we would hope that we'd be able to release it shortly after that. So we have this this meeting where we're trying to get some information and kind of like the real deep start of getting information back from you all. You might hear from me separately just to find out, just so I can find out if there's anything that you thought of between now and then. And then we have, like I say, the anticipated RFP release date in May. We are wanting to do May so that it lines up with other RFPs that are going out, and so that organizations can plan for the fiscal year. And then this pilot program, and we purposely created a pilot program. Although the funds are ongoing, we definitely imagine that the program will continue. We wanted to make it a pilot program so that we can evaluate it in February just to see how things are going. So that's the plan. All right. Is there anything else? All right. Well, thank you all for the time, and I'm really glad that this home retention pilot program is underway. So really, really appreciate it and look forward to hearing more from you all. All right. Matthew is here.
Okay. Good evening, Matthew Schaubold with the Housing Bureau. So I'm here today to talk to you about the next round, so the second round of the preference policy application process for home ownership. At your last meeting, I believe you got a presentation on the 50/20 from Proud Ground. So this slide, just to remind you, is an excerpt from that presentation. It's 40 total units, and you can see the bedroom counts and the income levels and estimated average prices there. So it'll be for 40 units. So the mechanics of the application round, we are about to begin our marketing and outreach at the end of March to run through May 3rd. The actual application window will occur in the last 2 weeks of the marketing and outreach phase. So from April 22nd to May 3rd, and you've got a flyer, one of the flyers we'll be using, so that has that information on it. And then we'll be processing applications internally at the Housing Bureau from about May to June, and then transferring the list of applicants to the Portland Housing Center in July, so this summer. And then the applicants themselves will then work with the Portland Housing Center to be assessed and to work to become mortgage ready in time for purchasing, if they're interested, one of the 5020 condos mid-2022?
It's done, that project is done 2021, so.
2021.
occupancy is
So
2021.
2021. So we're getting the names this summer so that folks have time to work through and become mortgage ready before the project's complete. So as far as what we're doing for our marketing and outreach, we're doing our standard print, web, social media advertisements. So we'll have ads in papers, radio, working on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media sites. We'll obviously use all of our email and listservs that we have. We have quite a large email list through our previous homeownership round and rental rounds, as well as our interest list around North and Northeast, and then our general interest lists at the Housing Bureau. And then we'll be doing community outreach and partnership. And so we're working with Proud Ground and Habitat for Humanity, and working with community-based organizations, working with the library system. We'll be flyering and doing outreach to local businesses and houses of faith to get the word out during our marketing window that if folks are interested in this opportunity to purchase a condo at 5020, and we have unit details, that they can apply for preference to get a priority status in their in the application waiting list, and that they'll need to be mortgage ready and they'll need to work with the Portland Housing Center, but it's an opportunity for folks to engage. Yes, sir.
May I ask a question at this point? One of the things that I don't see that I feel would be very important as you move into the application processing, for lack of a better word, you need a Bible that spells out what's happening in the process. Here's step 1 through finish. Who's getting the applications? Where are you to apply? Mm-hmm. What happens after that? And what goes on? So that an individual who is seeking information, you can put this in their hand and they have a checklist that they can go down and work on, and they don't get caught by surprise.
I think that's absolutely something we can put together. Yeah.
Okay. And hopefully that will be something that once it's done, also will be shared with the committee. So if there's any input as to what might need to be strengthened, added, we'll do that. I think it will help us keep down any potential whatevers when people know up front what it is, and there isn't the hidden part. Some know, some didn't know. I didn't think it was going to be this way. I thought it was going to be that way. No, you can't do it this way. You got to do it that way. Here's what the process is, and we're following it all the way through.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can, we'll put something together. I think it's something we can have as a standalone. We can also put it on the back of our flyers and our other materials. And I will work with Leslie to send it out to the committee to give feedback on, something that is very clear and concise, that makes sure everybody knows the steps in the process. So we can get that out to the committee and get feedback before the application round starts. Absolutely. So I think I'm going to defer to the chair. I was going to give an overview or refresher on the preference policy, because I know we have some new members since the preference policy was established a few years ago. But they're not here. So and some of our members here today were on the original task force. So does the chair for either the public or viewers want me to do a refresh on the preference policy, or should we just move on? For just us? Okay.
For those of our at-home viewers,
Sure. So
would you give us a quick,
yeah, and apologies for
refresh.
everybody who is shaking
Hello,
their head
everyone at
behind
home.
Dana and I. So for folks that So quick goals of the preference policy, essentially for Housing Bureau programs, to give applicants preference if they have generational ties to North and Northeast Portland for both our rental housing programs and our home ownership programs. So when creating it, it's essentially a point-based system. So folks will apply and they get a certain number of points based on historic city actions that displaced generations of Portlanders. So again, looking at the condemnation around Emmanuel Hospital, Memorial Coliseum, the Albina planning, looking at the Albina community plan boundary, looking at the urban renewal area boundary, and when you overlay those, you get a concentration map of geography. And so based on where folks lived, you can be eligible for greater points. So if you did not live in any of the shaded areas on the map, you are eligible for no points, all the way up to the red area, which has the highest concentration of city urban renewal and displacement actions, where you get 3 points. A individual can get up to 6 points, because an applicant can get 3 points for themselves, and then they can get 3 points for a parent, grandparent, or guardian. So if going back to the map, if you lived in the red area and your parent, grandparent, or guardian also lived in the red area, you would be eligible for 6 preference points. So we encourage applicants to try as many addresses as they can remember for themselves and their ancestors to try and maximize their preference points. And I think the last piece I'll say is that if you believe or know that your property was taken by the city through some sort of condemnation action, you can mark on your application an eminent domain box. You can check that, and that will move you straight to the top of the list for consideration. And then the Housing Bureau will work with you to verify whether or not the property was taken. So as you're filling out your application, please be very considerate of whether or not your family's property was taken by the city in the past, and what addresses give you the highest level of preference points. Thank you all.
Are there any questions about, are you prepared to answer questions about the 5020 project as well, or?
I think Dana and I will do our best, but there may be some information that we would need to have Proud Ground follow up with the committee.
And I would like to say, sorry to put her on the spot, but yes. Okay, we also have Jill in the audience as well, who's working directly with that project too. So depending on what you say, might have to have her come up as well.
I have a couple questions.
Great, Julianne.
So there, you said there's 40 units. Is that 40 preference policy units? And then, because I thought there were more overall. So there's like 20-ish market rate. Is that?
There right now it's 60. They're planning for 60 units.
64.
64 and 40 preference policy. Yes.
And then the other ones don't have subsidy and are market rate?
Correct.
And are those still in a land trust?
That actually, Jill, do you have the answer to that? I don't believe that they do.
Right. That's.
Sorry, Jill.
Sorry.
I believe,
Managing
so
the
while
needs,
Jill is coming up, I believe there were some outstanding questions from the last meeting about
This is what I was just gonna say.
the structure of the underlying permit affordability for the 40 versus the 64. So that did come up at our, that was a question from our last meeting.
Right, the other units.
Will you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Jill.
Get
Chen.
right in that microphone, please. Right face.
Thank you. I'm Jill Chen. I'm the Housing Investments and Portfolio Preservation Manager, which is AKA the production of multifamily for both rental as well as home ownership. So in your answer to your question about 50-20, the other units, the 20 units, are market rate. So it's targeted for whomever Proud Ground is able to sell those units to. I think there was a question about how it's going to be done.
Structure of the trust.
The structure of the trust.
We're still in the process of discussing the land with Oregon Housing and Community Services, as well as Proud Ground, because the land is PHB's, and the intention was for PHB to own the land and lease it to the condo for 99 years.
Right. And that has lift funds, homeownership lift funds, right?
That's correct. And that's
Oh,
why.
boy.
Yes. We're in
May
the
the force be
process.
with you.
We're in the process of working with OHCS on what their requirements are, because this is the first time they're also looking at a large condo for their lift funds.
Right. And you said that they're supposed to break ground on building this.
They got a pre-development loan in January or end of this last year. It'll probably take them about a year before they get their permits. And then, so we're anticipating closing end of this calendar year or early next year. So we're hopeful that'll get started.
So probably, let's say January of 2020 is when we would expect to be groundbreaking, and 2021,
Yes.
people moving in.
That's correct. The construction, I can't remember off my top of my head, I believe it's about 18 months, plus minus, I think maybe 16, 18 months, something like that.
When you do have a little bit more detail, I know it's like a really wonky question to want to get into the weeds on the structure of the land trust. Could you email that out to the committee? So we can
Sure.
review it
I
and
think
follow
once
up with questions?
Sure. Once we have clarity from OHCS and Proud Ground as to what works, we'll let everybody know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
it would be great if the partners and perhaps yourself, Jill, can come back and report to the committee, because we had a conversation about the structure of the land trust versus the condo that actually sounded a little different from what you've just described. And so I'm at least confused at this point. We also had questions and wanted a report back from the partners on the structure of their condo association, their governance model, and their sort of election process, given that it is a mixed income building,
Yes.
and the sort of potential for inequity to arise from that. So we definitely also want to hear back from them, I think, both about the sort of legal structure and the ownership piece, but also about their governance plans.
Yeah, I think the condo structure at this time for the individual homeowners, that's quite preliminary. We've only had initial discussions with Diane and her team, but we will keep that in mind.
And I had one more question. So is this, the 50/20 are only for the new round of funds? Or can people who are currently on the list opt to get a condo at this location?
People that are on the first round must apply again for the preference policy in order to take advantage of this. So they won't automatically slide on that list at all. They will need to apply again, and they'll get notice that they need to.
Okay. But they don't need to, like, give up their spot on the current list in order to apply for this one?
I wouldn't say that happens right now, but it would not do us any good for them to be committed to a Olin or Kilpatrick and committed to a 50/20. So there will be some point where someone would have to
They would have to pick.
make a choice.
I think what I'm saying is that in order to apply for 50/20, you
No,
wouldn't
they don't
right?
have to
'Cause
give up their spot.
there were like
to apply.
600 people, and that was a randomized list, and so you apply a second time, you may or may not get it. I would hate for someone to give up their spot and then not.
Right, they do not have to give up their spot to apply.
Thank you.
Any remaining questions on this broader topic? The homeownership, home retention, anything else lingering in our minds?
There is one thing lingering in mind.
Sure,
Sorry.
Get off your chest.
I just want to reach out for your help in getting this information out to the community. There are some culturally specific agencies that are not wanting to subject their families to any type of egregious process because of what they've experienced before. And I'm just asking that the Oversight Committee, that we all just try to make sure that folks are aware of the preference policy application so that they just don't overlook it. It's been a struggle.
Great. That's important. Dr. Bethel?
Even more highlighting the importance of having the roadmap to put in people's hands because of the treatment and people shying back from not wanting to go through those types of processes, or feeling that maybe you're asking too much information, and if you're asking this, this might do this to me. The more you can put out front what it's going to be and reduce those types of questions and fears, I believe the more information you are going to get. Even when you look at this form here, when you, though you're not asking the person's name or anything, but even when people trying to say, well, you know, if I tell them I have about $2,000 a month coming in, that might mean that my rent might go up next month because they found out I got $50 more than I thought I had. So those types of fears, though, you might say, well, that's kind of a petty thing for you to say. But for people in those situations, it's real. And we need to try to kind of get back and look into the real situations and do what we can to help them, because the ultimate goal is helping them to stay in their house or to get affordable housing where they can feel safe and have good housing around them.
I would say, Dana, because you have people now in units, whether it's multifamily or home ownership, is to story bank. Get those stories of how going through the preference policy has really benefited them in buying a house or getting into an affordable rental unit. Because when you started the process, you didn't have people, but now you do. If you can get that in print, but also if some of them would come when you guys have these meetings to just say, okay, I went through it, here's what I went through, and all that, so that they have an actual person besides PHB staff, I think would be really, really helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will look forward to additional updates in the future. Great. So sounds like we'll be able to we'll call in the partners in a future meeting and have them answer some of our questions. We're going to now hear on the interstate project updates, the Bridge Williams site and the Reach Argyle site. We're ready, the Bridge Williams team. Glad to see you and hear about all the things that have been happening.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. So I'm Trina Whitman with Bridge Housing, and I'll let this kind of...
I'm Andrew Colas. I'm with Colas Construction.
So we are super happy to be here tonight. We have a lot of exciting information to share with the group. So you'll see in your packet and both on the screen, I think the second slide, I just put a very brief agenda together to let you know big picture of what we thought we'd talk about. I thought since we haven't presented in a while, I'd give you just a quick overview of the project to refresh your memory. I wanted to also talk about schedule, some of our next steps in community outreach, and then also a chance to hear from Andrew on where we're at with construction. So if we can flip through, I don't know, is anybody? Oh, do I have the flipper? A clipper? Okay. Ah, there we go. Now we're moving. Okay. Oh. Although now it's not responding. There we go. So I just want to remind you, this is what the building looks like. 5 stories, wood frame construction over concrete slab. We have balconies scattered around the building, and also on the ground floor we have kind of a porch stoop interface with the surrounding sidewalks. And there's just a reminder of what the front main entry looks like. And then also just wanted to remind folks, it's a 61-unit project. 60 of those units will be provided for folks that are living at 60% AMI or less. More than half of those, about 38, are for folks living at 30% AMI or less. But there's kind of the breakdown and how all that works. So super exciting milestones. You know, we've been working on the financing for this for 3 years now, and I am beyond ecstatic to tell you we are closing on Wednesday next week. So things are still very, very busy this week, but next week the the champagne corks will come out and, and we'll be celebrating for sure. Which means that we get to start construction the following day on March 21st. Wanted to give the group a heads up that we will be looking at a groundbreaking probably a little bit later into the project because there's some existing buildings on the site. So we want to get those taken down, and then we'll do a groundbreaking and let the folks know here about that. So you'll get an invitation in a few weeks for that, but just wanted to give you a heads up. Forecasting forward, you know, early next spring. Oh, thank you. We will be starting our lease-up process, finishing construction early June of next year, and then we'll plan to have everybody in by the following fall. So moving on. There we go. We do have some community outreach planned. We're going to be meeting with the adjacent neighbors because we are fronting a number of residential properties. We're going to be meeting with them next Friday to kind of talk about the whole construction process and schedule, just so they're really clear what to expect and who to contact during construction. We will plan on going back to Good in the Hood and People's Market this summer. We found those events to be really an amazing way to connect with folks. After each of those events, we've come back with interested party lists so that we can just keep adding on to our contact list. And once we get to early lease up next year, we'll have a good start on a list already of folks that we can reach out to. So we'll be planning on doing that. And then with that, I will hand it over to Andrew to talk about where we're at on construction, given that that's getting started next week.
Yeah, we're going to be starting construction next week, so we're excited. It's been a really good pre-construction period with Bridge Housing. So we're starting up. Everybody always likes when the construction companies start and when they finish. In between the time, all the neighbors want you to hurry up and finish. So we're going to do our best. We have a 14.5-month schedule on this project. So we have the demolition of the existing building there. Then we'll be starting right into construction. In regards to the project overall, MWSB participation, we're really excited. We are right now looking at 28% MWSB. 25% of that is going to be minority businesses, so that's really good. The electrician on the project, the structural concrete, the flat work, the landscape, and the flooring are all firms that are going to be participating on that. So we're hitting really good numbers on it, but I think more importantly, the part that I focus on isn't necessarily the percentage, but how we're able to see these companies scale. So we're able to, on this project, it'll be our, I think, 12th or 13th project with the electrical contractor that we're working with. So we've been able to see that firm grow from when we started working with them. We were a much smaller company at the time. They were a much smaller company at the time. I think they were like a 3 or 4 person company. Now they employ over 50 people, and they employ a very diverse group of individuals, and they're continuing to grow, they're continuing to add systems, they're continuing to get better, and that's the model that I think when we talk about these percentages, that's the goal. It's to help companies grow, not to just say, oh, we did 28%, and you don't see the actual outcomes of the growth. Another really important thing for us as a company, and this is something that you would never see or track because it's not a part of that participation, but just overall looking in our company as we've grown the project engineers in our company. So we have a really diverse group of project engineers. 50% are women, 50% are African-American males. So that is the future of the project managers that are going to be running our company. And that's just something that you don't see in this industry. The project engineer on this project happens to be an African-American male, served in our military, worked in construction overseas, really stout, smart individual that'll be on this project. He's been working with the same project team for the last 1.5 years. So we're excited about seeing that. One of the labor foremen that'll be on this job, he's from this neighborhood. He'll be on this project. So those are the stories that you don't really track through the percentages that actually matter. That's the goal of the percentages, is to see people that are from various communities actually start to be able to continue to grow and eventually be the people that are in charge of running the leadership position. So for me, that means a lot more than the percentage. It's about actually seeing people grow. So Bridge has been a great partner to us on this project. They've helped us make sure that we could bring some of the design build contractors on early, and we're just looking forward to a really successful project. Obviously, construction is difficult. You always run into your hurdles during the course of construction, but we feel like we have a really good partner in Bridge, and we'll get through those, and it'll be a successful project, and just looking forward to continue that growth. So that's the big picture of it, and we're excited to get going.
Yeah, so with that, that's really what we have for our update tonight. Happy to take any questions or comments folks may have.
A very small one. Remind me the location again.
Yes, of course. So it's on North Williams, in between Northeast Thompson and Northeast Tillamook, about halfway between Russell and Broadway. About 5 blocks from here.
Across the street from where Neighborhood Bills used to be.
Yeah.
Remember where they?
Yeah. And kitty corner from, Billy Elks, yeah.
Are you working with Nate's organization too?
NAMAC? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, on every project, we're always working in collaboration with NAMAC Oregon. I'm very involved in that organization, so they're very helpful in doing the outreach, making sure that people are involved. But I think we'll probably work more with them, just making sure NAMAC right now has a partnership with the POIC pre-apprenticeship program. Mm-hmm. So we'll find ways to get some of those pre-apprenticeship members either on the project as far as work goes, or at least to be able to tour the project during construction. We find that it's been a really helpful tool in getting the individuals that are in that particular organization to be able to see the construction phase, see different people of color working in higher positions, talking about the different scales that you can achieve, whether it be electrical, carpentry, labor. I think that's really a big part of what we're trying to do, is make sure that people from communities of color can see other people that are in the industry. So we'll definitely be working with them in regards to that.
Great. Any other questions, committee? Super. Well, congratulations on your closing. It sounds like you'll be there bright and early Friday morning. Mr. Polis.
I was like,
so
when she said that,
we'll
I was
drive
like,
by
boy,
and
that's coming.
look to see.
Yeah.
Just look for some shovels.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone,
Thanks
for all
very
your
much.
time this
Yeah, and thanks for all your support the last couple of years. We really appreciate it.
Congratulations.
All right. And is it Lucy from Reach? Great. Welcome.
Good evening. So I'm Pamela Benoit, Chief Operating Officer with Reach Community Development.
And I'm Lucy Corbett, Housing Development Project Manager with Reach for the Argyle project. We wanted to provide an update on the project since we were here last in November of last year. Let's see. So since that last update, we closed our financing on January 28th, and we began construction on January 29th. And we are on track for completing the project in the spring of next year. Here's just a few recent shots of construction. We're still doing site work and just getting out of the ground with our foundation. And we also wanted to circle back on the results of our bid process. We presented to this committee prior to going out for a bid, so I just wanted to give you the results. So we sent out bid invitations to a list of 2,045 subcontractors. On that list were, we individually targeted 91 North and Northeast businesses with a follow-up email or phone call. And we did additional outreach to the groups listed there to try to encourage North Northeast businesses to submit for the project. Oops. So from that outreach, we received 304 separate bids. Of those, 15 bids were from North Northeast businesses. Right now, we have the following scopes under contract with North Northeast businesses: landscaping, radon mitigation, fencing, trash hauling, and site photography. And we don't have contracts finalized yet, but we expect to have the second list also under contract with North Northeast businesses. And we are on track to meet 32 to 33% MWESB participation. So that's our results at this point. I also didn't have it at the time I submitted this presentation, but we are projecting about 11% of our total contract value to be with North Northeast businesses. Any questions on the outreach or bidding results?
I want to say I really personally like this. I would encourage us, Leslie, to have other CDCs that are working on it break out the bid process this way. I think it's for me, it's very helpful. The only other question I would have for you is how many of those, any of those African-American businesses? I think it's great. Thank you for pointing out the North Northeast, but were any of them African-American businesses as well?
That detail I don't have right now, but I can certainly make sure to get it from our contractor.
And so, and it's really impressive that you guys are at 32 or 33%. Taking out the D, just doing the MWESB, is the percentage still staying at 32 or 33%?
That I also would have to get from Walsh. I don't have the breakdown for each of those categories.
And this is just not related to this, but have you guys replaced Jessica yet? I'm just curious.
Nope, not yet. Okay.
So on our next steps for the project, we are planning to have a community celebration in partnership with Transition Projects. And when we sent the slides in, we had not yet confirmed the date, but it is now confirmed for June 12th. And we are really interested in feedback from this body as to any aspects that you would like us to consider for that celebration.
I'll just make a note on the partnership with Transition Projects. Transition Projects is doing a project of their own just basically next door to the Argyle site, so that, and they are slated to start construction, I believe, in June or so. So that's why we are doing this in conjunction with them.
Thank you for that clarification, because I was wondering how you partnered with them.
And so an invitation will be going out to the community and, of course, to this group. And we do invite any comments, feedbacks on, again, any aspects of that celebration that you would like us to engage in. Additionally, we are looking forward to partnering with PHB on planning for the lease-up using the preference policy. So I'm sure that we have all learned a lot from all that we have experienced so far. So we look forward to communicating about those lessons learned and to make sure that we are partnering every step of the way with PHB and keeping this body updated on that progress. We also wanted to talk a little bit about the project name. In the office, we refer to it as the Argyle or TriMet Argyle. And we were wondering if there is, some significance in the community with that being like a gateway project, that we might want to have a different name for that property and to have a process by which we select that name.
Since we don't have as many of our members here tonight, what's the timeline so that I can make sure I can get that question out to the committee that aren't here and give them an opportunity to give feedback both on the community celebration and the naming process? What's your timeline on those two things?
Being mid-March now and the celebration scheduled for June, we'd like to, within the next 30 days, to really iron down the logistics and the planning for the celebration. And the naming, probably within that time frame, just to know if we want to have a process. The longer we refer to the property as the Argyle, and once we start any additional outreach and marketing, we would like to be able to refer to the project by what the name is going to be permanently.
Pamela, do you have a naming committee? Because a lot of processes, I'm just thinking about the school process, when you name a school, there's usually a naming committee. Do you have a committee in which you're working with that we can talk to, or is it just reach staff?
At this point, it's just reach staff, and I don't know that anyone other than Lucy and I has had that conversation, but it's a gateway project and something that we're all going to be very proud of. And I'm thinking that there might be some name of significance that we might want to market with. So,
well, there's two organizations that I think you should at least talk to: is the Black Pioneers and the Oregon Historical Society, to see if there were any African Americans that did a lot of work in that area that, since you were talking about it being a gateway, those two organizations might be helpful as well in the naming process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it goes without saying to involve the Kenton Neighborhood Association. They've been pretty vocal about wanting to have input, and so I think it would just be a good move to also reach out to them, and if you do find to have a naming committee, to invite someone from the Neighborhood Association board to be on that committee would be a good idea.
Thank you. Have anything else to add?
No.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you for this update. Okay. We're running well in time. So we are ready to move on to the Bureau's update on annual data for 2018. So as Ms. Leslie is moving up to the front, I'll just remind my fellow committee colleagues, the report of our Oversight Committee is going to City Council on Wednesday, the 20th. We still need 2 additional people to come to the report conversation at Council. It is a time certain of 9:45 a.m., Wednesday, the 20th.
Don't everybody jump at once.
Some people did a wonderful job of providing feedback into the report and its formatting, and maybe.
That's why I did that instead of I didn't have to go to the meeting.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because I have a conflict, so.
I didn't do anything. I just clicked.
All right. Are we volunteering our colleagues who aren't absent? Bishop Holt will be there, of course. I'll be out of town, unfortunately. Okay, so we still need to work on that.
We still need to work on that.
So I need to check my calendar when I get back to my office, but I'll follow up with an email with you tomorrow and let you know.
Great.
Are we?
Thank you.
Are you clicking for me?
Jillian?
Where'd they go? I emailed them to you. That's what we were. Remember we did that whole email thing?
So Lisa, for the annual report, off of the committee that was there, since they're not here so I can volunteer them, Karen or Tristan would be really wonderful because they helped me with the report. So either one of them would be great.
I agree. I think maybe some individual invitations will be necessary. Do you need a thumb drive?
No, I have one.
Okay, great. So we're just getting our presentation. So it's my understanding, maybe you can describe this. There's also a bureau.
So
of
I can kind of talk through what's going on. So next week we do have our you have your annual report to council. The committee did a great job. I appreciate everyone's assistance in getting that done. If Bishop was here, he would be very effusive in the fact that the committee did most of the work, so he didn't have to do as much. So he was very, very happy about that as we were finalizing the report. Additionally, the Bureau is doing an annual report. It's still in draft form. So this will be the first time, and it'll be like the Bond Oversight Committee, about the bond, we do an annual report. So all the other things we do an annual report about, we're now going to also do one on the Northeast housing strategy from the Bureau's point of view. And the committee used much of what's in here as the basis for the report that was produced. And so what I'm going to be talking about tonight is some of the highlights from the Bureau standpoint, but some of them are also in your report. And Lisa and Bishop, as we met a couple weeks ago, wanted an opportunity for the committee to talk about the highlights, the lowlights, opportunities for the current year as we're moving into through 2019 and what we need to focus on. And before I do that, I wanted to introduce somebody. I forgot to do it earlier. Molly Rogers is our new deputy director. And so she is, we're very happy to have her, and she can come up and introduce herself.
Good evening. My name is Molly Rogers. I'm the new Deputy Director of the Portland Housing Bureau. I started about 2 months ago, so I'm in the process of learning a ton, and I'm just really happy to be here and learn all about the great work you guys are doing to advance the Northeast policies and homeownership and advancing more rental housing for everyone here. So thank you.
Why don't you tell them what you, besides being deputy, what do you do? What are you in charge of?
First order, my primary responsibility right now is to oversee the Portland Affordable Housing Bond Program, and in addition to the Metro Bond Program. So the work that we're doing is really getting a lot of money out the door to get many units built in the next couple years. And we're starting with a bond solicitation at the end of April that we're hoping will help create between 350 to 600 new units of affordable housing. So there's been an incredible amount of work that the staff was already doing. I'm really thrilled to be here to lead this effort and to essentially advance all the policies that this committee and other committees are working on. And we do have priority locations through that bond because we went through a whole stakeholder process a year ago that helped identify 3 location preferences. One is North Portland, the other is Southwest Portland, and the third is East Portland. So anyway, I'm just glad to be here and listen to the work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Molly.
Just a little bit, not a long one. Where'd you come from? What you been doing? You got some experience? Or did you just get put in a position?
Thank you for that. Sorry, I should have done a little more background. I've been in Portland for 17 years. When I got here, I actually had a brief stint at the former Bureau of Housing and Community Development. I worked on ending homelessness efforts then. Since then, I worked for the Housing Development Center, which some of you may know is a nonprofit development consulting agency that helps work with a lot of other fellow nonprofits to build the housing, and I was working as the director of asset management there, so I was helping a lot of nonprofits help sustain that housing for the long term, financially and physically viable assets after that. Then in the last 8 years, I've spent at Home Forward, formerly known as the Housing Authority of Portland, where I was the director of asset management and housing policy there. In that role, I oversaw the whole real estate portfolio of 6,500 units of affordable housing, and within that, a whole wide range of housing types and serving a whole different types of populations. But it was all for all affordable housing, which is my passion and my mission. So it's been really wonderful now being. Continuing to be a partner in the affordable housing realm, but my hope is to be able to use those 13 years of a practitioner to come in and think through how these policies are implemented in a way that makes sense to our partners and really to the people we're trying to house, because it's really, really complicated set of bureaucratic kind of processes that we tend to create, and there are ways that we can maybe make that simpler. That's my hope.
As a developer and a finance person, I'm really happy to have someone at the Bureau with practical experience who's had all of the same interactions that all of us have had with OHCS and the Housing Bureau and others, Home Sources and Home Forward and administering and subsidy layering and all of it. And so I'm really welcome, and I'm really glad that you're there.
Okay. Thanks, great to meet you. I'm gonna find out.
Okay, so I'm going to walk through some of the highlights of 2018. So the first slide, everybody should have received a copy because it's kind of hard to read there, but this is the quarterly reporting. This is through January of 2019. And as you can see from on rental development that we projected that we were going to do 380 units total. By the time we get done, we are going to have 501. So we're going to be way beyond our goal. Currently, we have 146 units under construction. For home repair loans, we have provided 79 to date. And as you can see, how many more we have to go through 2022. We are doing well on that. Home repair grants, again, we are doing pretty well on that. We have to get through 2022. We've served 292 households. Dana, are those some of those? Is she still here? The home repair grants, those are not unduplicated. Some people have had more than one. Yes, that's correct. Okay. They can have two. Or they can have three. Okay, so they can have up to 2 times that they can receive a grant. And then Dana gave the update about home ownership. We do have 7 people that have purchased towards our 65 number, but we have 15 people who have purchased through the preference policy. So people that have come through that process have become homeowners even if they didn't use our money. So that's a really great that we have more than doubled where we were this time last year, which is a great thing. So accomplishments for 2018, we had 2 buildings open, both the Beatrice Morrow and the Charlotte Rutherford. We had the preference policy utilized for 3 buildings. So I think everybody will remember that the Garlington Plaza, what they voluntarily used the preference policy to lease up their building 30, Matthew, how many units for Garlington? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Divisha. 30 to 36 units at the Garlington Plaza. And the Charlotte Rutherford is totally leased, and Beatrice Morrow is still in process of leasing. Thanks to you all, the down payment assistance forgiveness was approved by council on September 19th, and that's a wonderful thing. We are working with City Council on getting the documents and everything changed so that we're going to go back to 2015, July 1st, 2015, and everybody will get new loan documents so that they will be under that new program. So they'll be under the loan forgiveness. And then, as Jillian mentioned earlier, the OHCS and the LIFT funds, we were very fortunate to have projects receive LIFT funds in 2018. So the bridge project, Magnolia 2, and then Proud Ground is still working through the details of theirs. So these are a couple slides, which again, they're kind of hard to see, and I will send this out to you guys. I printed out the wrong one, so that's why I didn't give it to you. It shows by race the numbers of people who received grants and loans. One of the comments from the committee as they were reviewing the data, concern about the number of African Americans that have participated in the loan program. And I believe we are going to talk a little bit about that. But some of the issues, and Dana can correct me if I'm incorrect, is the major thing is people don't want a lien on their house for $40,000. And then we've had a significant number of people that have applied that have reverse mortgages. And so one of the things that we're talking about at the Bureau is this a product that we should continue to do? Is there something else we could do to assist people? So that program we'll be looking at over the next few months. So here's our creating new homeowners slide. You can see the first bar is folks that received Northeast funds. The second bar is the number of folks that have purchased using Prosper funds. The third one is the 2 people that are closing within the next, well, somebody tomorrow and someone in, I think in 2 weeks, that are our first citywide dollars, which are construction excise tax, CET. And then the final bar are 4 people who were able to purchase homes without any subsidy from us, but they did come through the process, and they were assisted by our community partners to purchase family homes. So again, we're very proud of the fact of where we've come to in a year. Strategy 3, creating rental homes. I talked a little bit about this earlier. Charlotte B. Rutherford, 51 units leased. Beatrice Morrow, 81 units currently leasing. The Magnolia 2 is under construction and supposed to be done in January of 2020. King Parks broke ground a couple weeks ago. And Bridge Williams, we heard about them. They're going to be putting a shovel in the ground next Friday. And then Reach and Argyle, you also heard from them today, and they're under construction. And as I said earlier, 501 units out of the dollars available, which is really amazing. Strategy 4, which is land banking. We are currently in negotiations with a longtime property owner to purchase property within the district. We hope to have that finalized within the next 30 to 60 days. So we'll be able to announce that once that's final. And then as we discussed, I think at the last meeting, you approved the recommendation of including the Cary Boulevard property in the URA. And so that will be going to Prosper's board on April 10th. So if there's anybody interested in coming with me to Prosper's board to talk, I would welcome the additional voice. So MWESB participation, this is around rental. So the biggest so this is dollars spent on MWESB. And again, I know that this is very tiny and you don't have the actual document, and I will send it out. So that's dollars spent. And then this is the diversity of the participants by the number of hours that they've worked. So you can see, and I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see that. But again, my apologies for you not having copies of this. Where did the rest of my... Okay, well, questions?
Where are we with the lease up for Beatrice Morrow?
The last that I heard a few days ago, I think we're at 51%. Matthew, do you have different? I'm sorry? Beatrice Morrow? I'm sorry? Okay, so over 50.
About half sounds right.
Yeah.
As someone that worked on the report, I just have to say, the thing that I'm most proud of with the preference policy is the fact that we are able to help African Americans come back into Portland. I know a lot of people see it as, oh, it's such a pain, it's bureaucratic and blah, 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 but I haven't seen anything nationally to bring in back African Americans at the level that this preference policy has. And so as difficult as it is for some people that work at PHB, I just want to commend you for continuing on because I think it's really important. And I would encourage us to look at using this sort of model beyond just here in bringing African Americans back, not to expand it, I'm hoping in other arenas. And so just in the data confirms that the policies that we have put in place, and Dr. Bates, thank you for all your work on this, by the way, has really made a difference in the community.
Well, one of the things to echo what you're saying is the number of people from across the country that have reached out to us asking for information, wanting to interview, wanting to know just basically how we were able to do this. I spoke to a research assistant from Berkeley 2 weeks ago that they're very interested. I spoke to folks from San Francisco, from Texas, from New York, Florida, Michigan. So states all across the country are watching this and very interested in how we have been able to do it and if it's working. And so I know that the first couple rounds were bumpy and that some people felt like we weren't as clear, concise, or transparent as we could have been. But as we're doing these second rounds, and as Dr. Bethel mentioned, if we can give people a step-by-step that this is what you have to do to get there, that it will be helpful. And I agree, it's probably one of the biggest and best policies to come out of the city of Portland, at least as far as I can remember of being a government employee, which is coming up on 27 years.
So this week I was in DC earlier, and the professor that wrote The Color of Money, dealing with black banks and institutions, was talking about that. Talking about reparations for the African American community and the complexity of the banking system and how it's impacted the African American community. And one of the things that's really good about our preference policy and that other people are really looking at is it's not necessarily based on race. It's based on historical injustices, and that's the framework that I think makes it so powerful. It really shows you that you don't even have to use race. If you just use historical injustices, it shows the necessity, and it shows how government can really repair the damage that it's done historically, especially in the African American community. And I'm hoping that all the communities that are coming to look at us find a way of being able to utilize it in their communities as well.
I think that, well, first, just to echo what Leslie is saying, that there's a tremendous amount of national attention to this program. So it behooves us to sort of to get it right and be able to tell the story of what's happening here. I think, it's an unfortunate reality that if you are a person who has a low income and you're seeking housing assistance, that you will jump through a number of hoops, that there will be documentation requests and wait lists and a lot of confusion and complication. And so it also, I think it is very important as we build this, that it is as clear and as easy and as compassionate a process as possible. And I've been very impressed by the Housing Bureau's, bringing on of staff to ensure that people have real human beings to talk to, that they're able to get assistance and in the process of doing this application, because it is a little bit different from some other spaces. So it's important to keep that work up, I think, and to keep that same energy as we go forward. One of the points of our report was to continue with the outreach and marketing efforts, which we heard about tonight. Dana speaking about the home repair and grant program and sort of really boosting that up, so we make sure we have the participation of the folks who have been most affected by historical injustices. So continuing on with that, very diverse outreach methods and finding people where they're at, talking to them in the way they want to be talked to, and bringing them into the fold. So I think always doing what's happening and then doing more, just doing more.
I think it, not just the national attention, but also that we have projects that are opting in to use the policy, that it is not so cumbersome that people can't, they're like the Garlington didn't have to use the preference policy and opted in to use the preference policy, and that property leased up from 0 units leased to 100% leased in less than a month. So the communication with the property management company and the coordination makes a huge difference, but that I think it really shows that this can really be successful and make the impact can go beyond just these funds and these 4 projects, that there's potential here to continue that impact after the money is spent by continuing the list, by continuing to have developers opt in, and the more successful it is and the more lease-ups that are successful, the more developers are going to want to opt in, and I'm really proud to be a part of that process.
Well, just one last comment, something that Felicia said about getting people to come and talk. And one of the things, because, I've been working for the Bureau, I've been out in front of this project since we started it in 2014. And I was at, I think I was at the bank or somewhere and filling out some papers. And the young man that was helping me, he's like, "Oh, well, where do you work?" And I said, "I work for the Housing Bureau." And he said, oh, are you guys the ones that are doing the preference policy thing to help black people move back into Northeast Portland? And I said, well, yeah, we're trying to help people move back. He said, my girlfriend got an apartment because of the preference policy, and she'd been homeless for 3 years. She'd been couch surfing for 3 years, and she got a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment at Garlington that if they hadn't opted in, she might not have gotten a place. And he was just so effusive and so happy that we were doing this and providing this opportunity. And that I probably would never have known, but, you know, he saw my name and he was like, wait, I saw your, you know, what do you do? I see Housing Bureau. So we do need to have some people come. I know that there are folks that have purchased homes, that got rental units, that are very happy, that haven't been in a safe place, haven't had an affordable unit, have been paying way more money than they could afford for an apartment. And so we'll work on getting some people to come and talk about their process and what this has done for them. So anybody else have any questions or comments? Anything for the Housing Bureau for 2019? I know that there's some stuff in your report that that you asked about. Again, the African Americans with the loans, the MWESB for the home repair program, specifically around African Americans, and why the number dropped so much from 2017 to 2018. The newsletter that we used to put out, we have not done for a while, so we're going to try to figure out how we can get that going again. So those are some of the big things. The other issue looming is the maximizing the indebtedness of the URA, if we're going to go forward with that, and what else, what are the impacts for us doing that, and additional conversations with the Northeast CDI from Prosper about whether or not we should or can or do that in this year.
I'll just raise another point from our report around communication from the partners. And so I hope that 2019 that PHB will continue to prepare partners coming to this committee so that they are ready to answer the questions that we have. Repeatedly, I think our questions are, can you get specific to speak about serving the African American or Black community that's been displaced? Can you talk about your data, your numbers, your participation in everything from contracting to who is in the units that are specific to the community that has been most affected by this geographic area and the policies here, and to be able to speak about the ways that they're learning from this program in working with folks who may have been displaced multiple times, who may be very disconnected from the service ecology, not working with programs, who are just finding out about this and applying and kind of getting in line, what they're learning, and how that is transforming their work, not only inside of this geography and with this funding, but how that's transforming their work toward racial justice all around the city. I think we ask those questions repeatedly. We often do not get answers to those questions. We often ask the question of the same people again and do not get answers to the questions. And so I'm hoping that we can not only make sure that folks are ready to come to the table, to this front table, and answer those questions, but also that we can have some toothy accountability around actually producing results, not just because they're given a wait list that, you know, has the demographic that it has within these projects, but to talk about how is this actually changing the operations and the work that you're doing to address what is really, you know, one of the core legacy historical injustices in this city and in cities around the country, which is around the African American community experience with urban renewal.
Well, as we go forward through this year, as I invite partners to come forward, I will make sure that those are the questions that they need to be prepared to answer, and understand that if they don't, that they will be asked them again until we get answers to the questions. So I'll make sure that I get them out in enough time that folks have opportunity to answer them and prepare their documents.
I certainly don't place that responsibility primarily on you. I think as we're several years in, that all partners should be prepared at this time. They've been to the meetings, they've heard the questions, they've watched the videos. They should be very prepared to answer the questions of this committee with that kind of specificity. So however we may be able to communicate that to them, and our expectations would be great. Any other questions? All right, is there anyone who has signed up for public testimony that we already know about? We'll now move to our public testimony time. Sire says no. Is anyone here in the audience interested in coming up to this front table and saying comments into a microphone to us for 3 minutes about the North-Northeast housing strategy? We will not ask you pointed questions, most likely, but we will receive your comments and questions. Members of the public.
We're good. We can adjourn.
All right, it sounds like we are going to adjourn well on time this evening.
Just remind
Our
the next meetings.
So again, our public presentation of our annual report happens at City Council Wednesday, March 20th, the time certain of 9:45 a.m. That'll be a 45-minute session, conversation with City Council. Our next Oversight Committee meeting is May 9th. It's always a Thursday, and it's always right here, and it always has food. Our following meeting will be Thursday, July 11th. Also 6 p.m. here at New Song Church on Russell Ave in Northeast Portland. Bishop Holt will be returning. Your regularly scheduled MC will be back with words of wisdom. I'll just say thank you all for coming. See you next time.
You did a great job.